This is Module 5, which is advertising as part of a marketing strategy course. And when we talk about the different methods of promoting your product, of integrated marketing communication, your kind of traditional advertising has been in a slump for quite a long period of time. Nevertheless, it's Super Bowl week. I'm going to be on the radio, local radio, the Larry Brogan and Fred McCara's Business Matters show tomorrow, talking about what to look for in terms of the Super Bowl ads, and then I'll be on the radio following week after the Super Bowl talking about what were the results or who won the big contest and that kind of thing. So you can still see that when it comes, say, to reaching young males in the demo, 18 to 35. When it comes to reaching young males, NFL football is still the king. Now, fewer and fewer kids are playing American-style football. More and more kids are playing the football that's played in the rest of the world, the football that's played with a round ball. And that type of football is becoming bigger and bigger in the United States. I mean, we have really big turnouts for some of the football games here. We have at ETSU, those of y'all that are watching this on YouTube, ETSU has a really excellent football team, and we've done really well the last years. We did so well that one of the bigger schools just stole our coach, and we're really upset about it. And I'm not optimistic that the athletic department is going to hire another great coach, but I hope that they prove me wrong. And then I'll have to go back and say, hey, I wasn't sure you guys were up to it, but you did it. So hopefully we'll have a great new football coach here at ETSU for our really good football program. And I wish we had a couple guys that graduated and didn't get scholarships. Didn't get drafted in the 4 rounds of the MLS draft. Hopefully they'll find a USL or an MPSL slot and work their way up into the big times. I think we definitely have 2 players that are capable of playing 3 or 4 players that are capable of playing professional soccer, and at least 2 or 3. I'd say 3. I said 2, but I really mean 3. Sorry, Blake Woodruff, I forgot you. But we have 3 players that are capable of playing professional soccer, and I hope that they're successful and in all of that. Now, I'm going to start this module on advertising by talking about positioning. And positioning is an idea that was developed by Rise and Trout, and my professor said Rise, and other people have said Rees and Trout, and I'm not sure what the correct pronunciation is. My old advertising professor, who knew them, Rise and Trout. And Rise and Trout, actually from Atlanta, they run their business out of Atlanta, and to say that they were originally kind of in the advertising business, but now really they're in the advertising strategy business, and this is marketing strategy. That's right up our alley. Now, positioning, when we use the term positioning in marketing 2 different ways, and we mean something that it's a little bit similar, but it really is different. And people who are brand managers or product people, in the product aspect of marketing, we use the word positioning, and we're thinking about a perceptual map. We're thinking about, say, there's the high quality, high price position. There's the low quality, low price position. And then there's a kind of middle quality, middle price position. And our product, we're going to make one brand for here. We're going to make Michelob for the high quality, high price. We're going to make Budweiser for the middle, and we're going to make Natty's, Bushes, and natural light Bushes, Natty's. Why don't I have Bush beer for the low end, and that's product positioning. That's something different. When advertising people, Rise and Trout, and they've got a couple articles that you can read. Positioning Era Cometh was an article that I read. Positioning the Battle for Your Mind is a book. It's been several editions of that book have come out. And what they're doing is that even though we talked about marketing being involved in the conceptualization and development of products, by the time it gets to an advertiser, the advertiser takes the brand or product as a fact. It's there, it exists, and then they want to turn it into a mental concept. The positioning theory developed by Reisentraut, one of the first things they said was that, there's a limit to the human mind in its ability to retain and put things into long-term memory. And normally when we do multi-attribute models, and we did one for marketing segmentation, the class before you watch this, or if you went to class and had module 2 before you're watching this, we did this. If you're watching this first and then you're going to go to class on Tuesday night for module 2, we'll talk about the multi-attribute models, where people look at a complex decision and they've got this aspect of it and this aspect of it, and they weight it, and then they kind of sum all of that together and they develop an overall attitude towards a particular brand, or an attitude towards buying that particular brand, a purchase intention type of attitude towards buying that particular brand. In those types of things, even in those, we're buying like a complex decision process, like buying a car, renting a house, buying a house. There may be 100 different factors that might possibly come into consideration, but the human mind's not capable of doing that. And they've recognized, we used to say when I was an MBA student, it was 7 plus or minus 2. That only 7 plus or minus 2 things can actually get into what we think of as a consideration set. The number of things that there's an evoke set, which is the number of possible things. And if we spent, you tied somebody up or strapped them down in a room in a chair and gave them a pen, a piece of paper, write down how many different things that people could possibly come up with in terms of different criteria for buying a car. And then, that would be the evoke set. But now when people actually do it, the consideration set used to be, we used to say 7 plus or minus 2. Now, people say 5 plus or minus 2. And then they even go less, like 4 plus or minus 2. I guess as the human mind becomes, the modern human mind is not as smart as the older generation was, or has too many other things going on and is too busy and only is going to consider 4 plus or minus 2. But I'll stay with 5 plus or minus 2 things in the consideration set. And I think the test question, we'll have a couple examples, possible examples of 5 different criteria for buying a house, renting a house, buying a car, some complex decision. Now, for a simple decision, when people go into the store to buy, and I remembered all of a sudden is Head & Shoulders dandruff shampoo that I forgot in Module 4. I can't believe that I couldn't remember Head & Shoulders. They were the first ones to go anti-dandruff and to explain to people what a horrible thing dandruff was, and that nice guy Ted would have a lot of girls want to date him if it wasn't for that dandruff. That's the Head & Shoulders from before. That's a simple decision. When we go into the store to buy shampoo, we don't go through a lot of complex processing. And there's a famous article by Cacioppo and Petty, if I pronounce the name right, where they looked at central and peripheral processing. And if you have a complex decision, which they called a high involvement decision, and involvement is a kind of level of interest or arousal associated with buying a particular product. Like buying a new car doesn't have to be. Now, for some people, it can be a low involvement decision. They call the car, everybody's got a lot of money, call the car dealer. What's here, I'm just email you these specs. Tell me what you can do. And they say, okay, you gotta get me a little bit better deal, and that's it. In 10 minutes, 2 emails, and they bought the car. And they'll be down to pick it up, have all the paperwork ready. I'm going to write you a check. I'm not going to finance it. Have all the paperwork ready. I need to get out of there in like 15 minutes and pick up the car and go. But for most people, it's a high involvement decision. There's a lot of interest and excitement, arousal associated with the purchase of that particular type of product. For high involvement purchase decisions, we do some thinking. We do some of that multi-attribute model where we look at the gas mileage, the price, the stylishness of the car, the cup holders, the other factors that really matter to us, and then we make a decision and get what we feel is best for us. For low involvement decisions, though, which is most of the common things that you see advertised in the Super Bowl, are going to be for fairly low involved Fritos and Cokes, soft drinks, chips, beer. those are very low involvement decisions. We're not going to spend a lot of time processing, burning mental calories, making those decisions. And most of our search is kind of internal. We have a lot of experience in the class, and yeah, we like these chips. No, we like spicy chips, so we're going to get something a little bit spicy. We don't like stuff that's too spicy, or our stomach doesn't like stuff that's too spicy. We're going to stay with something that's not too spicy and doesn't have a lot of spices in it. Whatever the decision is, it's going to be very simple, and it's going to be made very quickly. In a situation like that, what Rising Trout says is the human mind is limited. You know, one thing, maybe two, but one key thing that is going to stand out for that product. What is the one key thing that's going to stand out for the product? For Budweiser, it's Beechwood aged. Years and years and years of, it's Beechwood aged. The white beer, it tastes great. Two things. It tastes great at the same time as less filling. Now, you can call that one thing, call it two things. But so you wanted to identify the key assets of the product. What is it that makes them? And then also, when they say the key assets, it can't be a key asset if everybody else does it too. It's not an asset. And this is an important thing for businesses to understand, and when y'all become executives, to remember this. It's not a key marketing asset if everybody else is doing the same thing. If everybody else is able to do exactly the same thing, it's got to be something that differentiates us, a differentiator in the Rising Trout language. Obtain a place in the person's mind. A centrally located, well-connected, thus readily accessible switch. And this has to do with memory. And when I was young, the people thought the way memory worked was that there was this perfect recording device. And all of life's memories went into this recording, were recorded. Everything from like when we were, maybe not when we were babies, but from even, 3-4 years old, everything that happened went into this place in memory. Now the playback mechanism was a little bit faulty. And we could play back certain things, but other things we couldn't play back. And certain, say, traumatic events might be repressed, and the psychoanalysts would try to get people to talk about their most painful, frightening, horrible experiences. And then by unrepressing those, that was supposed to be the way to cure that type of whatever the problems that were associated with that. And that's the way we thought things happen. If we could just get the playback mechanism to work, everything would work. And that in theory, somebody might have a memory that they had if you had access to everything that was in your memory, you could play back everything in your life, because it was all there. We now know that the recording mechanism is also faulty. It's not just the playback mechanism is faulty. The recording mechanism, some things go into short-term memory, some things go into kind of a medium-term, and other things go into long-term memory. So what we want is, and then once it goes into memory, there are connections. And you think of it as little kind of synapses or neurons that are firing. And there are certain places that are well connected. Obviously for me, when I was lecturing on Module 4 a few minutes ago, the dandruff shampoo, Head and Shoulders, just didn't get into didn't have enough synapses. Or maybe the playback mechanism in my brain is starting to falter. But the synapses, the connections, and all the different ways that we want a centrally located, well-connected. And I think in terms of the practical aspect of this, we mean readily accessible. Immediately accessible. So when somebody goes in the store, they see the different shampoos. Oh, Head and Shoulders is the one for dandruff. And, I've got dark hair and I wear a lot of dark clothes, so I better be careful about that dandruff. And so that central location. Now, the process of positioning is that you start off, you identify your brand's competitors. Who is it that's in the same group as you? Dr. Stead would call it in the same strategic group. But, of course, we're looking at this at the brand, not at, although in the PowerPoint I think I said the businesses. I'm talking about at the brand level. What are the main, who is it that's going after our market share for this particular brand? And then you try to understand how how consumers, people who use the product, then you understand, okay, what is it that the key differentiators are for these other products, for these other companies, and what is it that they're doing? What is it that those companies are doing to position themselves? What is their in their mind, the competitors, the people that are competing with our brand for their market share? What is it that they are trying to do with the mind of the consumer? What is it the consumers feel about our competitors' products, or what is the position that the competitors try to create for their products? And it may be that one brand claims it's the fastest, other brand claims the cheapest. We're number one. We have the largest. We're the most popular. Faster, cheaper, larger, prettier, whatever it is. Okay, now then you try to figure out what it is that our client's brand, what is it today? What is its position? Where is it positioned in the mind of consumers today? Now, of course, if it's a new brand or a startup business, or it's in some really new area where people, companies or businesses or customers are not aware of what that brand does, then this existing position may not be there. Okay, so then you want to try to figure out, okay, if this company is fastest, okay, we're not as fastest. What is it that we do better than anybody else? What is it that where can we be that's not what everybody else is? What can we do? What position in the mind of the consumer can we claim? And then you have to come up with the creative idea. You have to come up with this distinctive, differentiating, value-based. In the modern era, is a lot, emphasis on the value-based positioning concept. Something that, and because we talked about the value model and went over an actual physical model and a quantitative method for determining customer perceptions of value. We need to find something that's going to impact value. That through improving need fulfillment, minimizing risk, minimizing time and effort, making it easier to do, minimizing time and effort, something that's unique and that will ring, it's unique, but it's also important in terms of the impact that will have on the value concept. So, and then it's a matter of developing the advertising, the media, the PR, the website, whatever it is, the key messages, usually a thematic statement, and a lot of the great positioning ideas that are in Rise and Trout's book and we talk about today, those great ideas are oftentimes a theme. And it's a very short, you would think of it as a slogan. I think if we were a consumer, we'd think of it as a slogan. But for business, think of it as a theme for what that brand is all about. And it's that theme is kind of, you think of it as a fast read on what that brand is all about. And the light beer tastes great, less filling. How many years have they been using that? Many, many, many years, many different execution styles, different execution methods, but that's what they did. Hertz, who was not number one, they were number two. So they tried harder. And we're number two, we try harder. And that great thematic slogan that the problem was they were so successful that they came close to being number one, and so they wouldn't have been able to use that anymore. But some way in which our brand does something bigger, better, faster, stronger. Now the execution methods for positioning, you can come up with a product attribute. Head and Shoulders is prevents dandruff. A particular toothpaste may taste good for kids. It may be or it has some kind of it has fluoride in it that's more effective but still tastes good.
Could be cup holders in a car. You'll see different aspects of vehicles. The green but be an SUV. The green SUVs, the hybrid SUVs, I think are going to be advertised some on the Super Bowl this weekend. That it's an SUV and it's big and it's tough and it rumbles, but it also gets great gas mileage. The fact that something gets better. I think in the playoff games they had the company, the Ford Fusion was advertised, and they've got a guy that talks about once you get in a car how it feels. The Fusion's a high-performance car, but it still gets good gas mileage, but it's a high-performance car. It feels right. So different product attributes. Value. The positioning execution method may be based on value. In other words, you have typically the value defined as what people get for what they give up. Well, then that's the quality versus compared to the price. That quality divided by price ratio or quality divided by price quotient is very favorable to the customer. So you can get, and I think you have cars like a Cadillac for many years, they've had different campaigns, but one of the things they try to do is they say, we've got a luxury car and it's got everything that the top end, sometimes they'll even physically have a comparison ad where they'll compare themselves to a Lexus, and the idea is that it's just as good as a Lexus, but it costs $30,000 less. Hyundai, kind of the same thing with their new. I think last year they had their new luxury model, whatever it is, and they were advertising it, and they were using that value, price, quality divided by price quotient, and they were using that as a ratio, and they were using that as their primary positioning execution methods. Use or application, especially if it's unique and the others can't do it. For example, Microsoft, their tablets have full Office, whereas the company they're competing against, Apple's products don't have Office. And it's a pain. I'm not even sure you can get Office even now for a iPad. And, if you can't get Office, you can't really work. If there was anything in the antitrust, when they had all the antitrust stuffs against Microsoft, I wish they'd have gone after Office rather than the web browser. Honestly, because Office is locked down business applications. The Excel and PowerPoint and Microsoft Word and everything, they have just totally dominated. And I as an old user of WordPerfect, to me, Microsoft Word today is still not as good as WordPerfect was. But they talk to each other. WordPerfect didn't really talk to Lotus and didn't really talk to databases and didn't really talk to the other spreadsheets that were available of that era. And so Microsoft has put everything into a seamless kind of package. So also there was, if you remember some of the ads, and I'm going back a year or two here, but the big battle between AT&T and Verizon. AT&T had smartphones where you could talk and surf the web at the same time. And they have a guy that forgot to make reservations for their anniversary, and he said, yeah, of course I made reservations. And the Verizon products at the time, their system would not allow you to talk and use the web at the same time. So they use that unique product quality. They use that unique product quality. Now, there's a company now, and I want to say it's Verizon, that they have maps, and they're showing their 4G map, and they're showing another company's map, and their map is all colored in. The other company's map is all white, meaning they don't have nearly the Verizon's big competitive advantage is that you can use it everywhere. You can be many more places and use their product, they say, than the competing company's products. So a use or application, especially one that's unique or at least that the other competitors don't have. Put yourself in a particular product class. Like you want to claim that you're is a Cadillac and a Hyundai luxury car in the same class with Mercedes-Benz and Lexus. Well, they want to put themselves in that class. By putting themselves in that class, they're elevating their status, and they're making themselves be part of a different group, a higher group, a group that for which people should be willing to pay more money because it's a high quality group. Who uses the product. And this is where you have all your celebrity endorsers and people that use the product. Michael Jordan drinking Gatorade, and they actually have the ads. Some of the early versions of the ads, literally, they had a song "Be Like Mike," and they would show Michael Jordan, jumping through the air. He'd jump at about the foul line and glide through the air. Sometimes they'd slow it down, and I think some of the Spike Lee may have even done some of these commercials where they slowed it down and he glides through the air and he comes down and he dunks the ball. And how many of us can dunk? I mean, I've had students that are 6'5", 6'6", and can't dunk. Now, I also had a student that was about 5'2", and was about like me, at least more than me, overweight, and so 5'2", and he weighed probably a couple hundred pounds, and he said he could dunk it. So but not many. That 5'2" student apparently can dunk a basketball. But there's very few people can dunk a ball. I mean, the average height, I think, is 5'8" or 5'9", and you really, there's some Spud Webbs and stuff like that can dunk the ball at a lower height. But, a lot of people 6'2", 6'3", 6'4" can't dunk. And so how many people can jump at the foul line and dunk it? Not very many. Well, how many of us can be Michael Jordan or be like Michael Jordan? We can't really be like Michael Jordan, but we can drink the same sports drink as Michael Jordan. Or we can go to this, and other drinks. One of the most famous, the one I would have showed you in class if we hadn't been snowed out, and to me, it's it usually comes in second, third, fourth for the greatest commercials of all time. But to me, it's the best commercial of all time. And if you're at home, you can just Google this: a Mean Joe Green Coke ad, and you look at who uses the product. And people like, Mean Joe Green, they're thirsty and they want something refreshing to drink, and they drink a Coke. Repositioning competitors. And you do this sometimes through comparative ads. And you'll see, with the repositioning competitors, the ad where they're showing the cell phone maps, coverage maps for 4G, the 4G cell phone coverage map. And it may not be Verizon. It may be somebody else that's just better at 4G. But I think it's Verizon. I want to say that shows the coverage maps. And they show the coverage map, and they show, these other people are lightweights. I mean, look at all these different places where you can't get coverage. And unless you're in a big city or on the interstate, and for these other guys, you're not going to be able to use your phone. And in the times really when you need to use your phone and you need to search the web and find out where the gas station is when you're traveling a lot. You're not at home. So for people who travel a lot and use it, that not being able to get service is a big deal. So repositioning the competitors so that they're something less than they should be. Pointing out that Apple, and the implication of the Microsoft ads that talk about having full office, and they literally they have the Apple products say, the iPad say, well, let's just go back to reading. And the implication is, okay, if you want to read or you want to play games, I guess the iPad's okay. But the new Microsoft thing, I think it can do two things at once. Oh, you can't do two things at once. You can't have two windows open at once, or you can't leave this window open over here in your game and go over here and take care of some work and go back. Can't do that. You have to go out and close out this thing, and then you have to open up something new. And you can't do two things, and you can't do so. They're positioning the competitors as something less than as just a toy. Instead of being an iPad, which is a great device for work, and you take to meetings and you can do stuff with it, it doesn't have Office, so it's just a toy. And you can't do two things at once, so it's not very convenient. So that repositioning competitors is the next one. Now, on the test question, on the test, you will have questions about the great campaigns of history. And the first great campaign of history, which is not on the PowerPoint but is on the test study guide, is the Marlboro repositioning campaign. To me, this is the greatest advertising campaign ever.
that they were selling a product that would end up killing many people, including several of the Marlboro men who played in the ads. I mean, that's if we're looking at it purely not from an ethical standpoint, but purely from a efficacy standpoint, it was the most successful ad campaign ever. Marlboro, at one time, I don't want it because this is part of your readings, and I want you to read about this. Go, find some readings about this. There's plenty of stuff you can find out there. I'm just going to hint at it, and I'm not going to give you all the answers here. But at one time, it was a very weak-selling cigarette that was primarily designed for what we would think of as upper class or upper middle class women, or upper middle class or gentry wannabes. I'll use the word gentry, not upper class, because some people think upper class, they think Vanderbilts and people like that. But gentry, the educated, elite, intelligentsia, that female that was part of that society, the women that Bertie Wooster was always trying to avoid marrying in Jeeves and Wooster, the old British television show, the women that he was always trying to avoid, and women who wanted to be like that. And it was the positioning concept was mild as May. So it was a women's cigarette, but then they were coming out. The government told the cigarette companies 6 months before that we're going to tell people the cigarettes are bad for them. And they're going to give them a 6-month head start to do something about it. And they wanted to. So the thing was, they wanted to have a male filter cigarette. They wanted it to be okay for a man to smoke a filter cigarette and not be looked at as effeminate or unmanly. And so they came up with this, and they didn't want to change the product. They literally did not change the product. They took this. The actual product is the same. They didn't have time to retool, remanufacture, even come up with a new brand name. They had to have something right away. And so what they did was they took a weak-selling women's brand, sacrificed it, and created a male brand. And eventually, I don't want to, but the Marlboro Man, the cowboy eventually became not at first, but eventually became the Marlboro Man. And then after the imagery was so powerful that after they were prohibited from television advertising, the print ads, the image of the Marlboro Man was so well known that they didn't really need television after that. And Marlboro became the most successful cigarette brand name probably in the history of brand names. Maybe Coca-Cola could make a claim to being better, but one of the most successful. And it was so that repositioning campaign, you'll have to read about that. I don't want to give you too much information in advance. I have also listed in the test study guide some of the other great campaigns of history. Timex watches. I've even got Head and Shoulders dandruff shampoo right there in the PowerPoints for this. The Gatorade Be Like Mike, Miller Lite, tastes great, less filling. Going way back, Wheaties, Breakfast of Champion, Wendy's, Where's the Beef? All of those are eligible. If there's something else that you want to do the Coca-Cola Peace and Harmony campaigns of the 60 and which they have the ads actually in the Library of Congress website. The one that was probably the most famous of all the Coca-Cola ads was called Hilltop. And if you just Google Coca-Cola ad Hilltop, you can see that. But if you have trouble, and there's plenty of stuff that you can find to read about most of these, you get to pick which one you want to do on the exam of these others, or which two, up to two, I think I said, that you get to do on the other exam. And I expect you to do some outside reading. When you come in to take the test, and I'll remind you of this, you need to have, because you're using other sources, you need to have a bibliography. So you should go ahead and print out the bibliography, and you can either, be several methods, and I'll talk about this in class, but generally since you're taking the test on the computer in the testing center on the computer lab, at least in 2014, you should go in there prepared to give me a citation. And because if you get some off the web URL may have, go on and on and on and on for 3 pages. I'm pretty happy if you give me the website, the title of the article that you read, and the author. And then I can find that on the web and read about it myself.
If you have something that's unattributed, I don't want you to use Wiki because it's unattributed, and you got to get me something better than what's in Wiki for these different, with the great campaigns of history. So you want something better than what's in Wiki. And then also, if you say something that is different than what I've heard, or different than what I've read, or different than what somebody else said, in particular, I want to go read it, and I'd like to be able to see the source. So for the great campaigns of history, which is several of the other questions that are on the exam from Module 5, you should go in, read about it, prepare an answer. Remember, it's an open book or open note test, so you're allowed to prepare answers in advance. You have the test study guide, so you have an idea what the questions are going to be. Because of that, I'm expecting thorough answers. This is a true graduate level exam. And I've had several students tell me that, before this class, up until this class, they haven't really had any graduate level exams. I don't believe that's true. I think most of the other professors at ETSU are also given graduate level exams. But this is a graduate level exams. I don't want any 1 or 2 sentence answers for, these detailed questions. I'm looking for a thorough answer on each of these questions. Now, you have a limited amount of time. You'll have like 2 hours and 20 minutes. So you won't have forever to take the test. And I'll try to, I know that in the past I've used a 2 hour and 55-minute test, and I've got to cut it down to 220. So some of the questions that I intended to be on the exam, I'm going to take off of the exam and make it a little bit shorter. But so you need to be efficient with your time, and I'm not saying you have to write a whole book on each question. But no matter what any professor tells you when you take an exam, more is better than less. And in particular, this is an open note exam. You can prepare answers in advance. And I'll be honest with y'all, some of y'all that are kind of, your B students at the graduate level, and you don't necessarily get to see the other students' answers. We have some really outstanding students in our MBA program, and when they go in to take a test that they can prepare for in advance, they're ready to knock it dead. And I'm reading those other students' answers, and then I get to a low motivation student's answer, and it's like 3 sentences for one of these readings, 2 sentences, 3 sentences trying to describe one of these great campaigns of history, and that's not going to cut it. I mean, the other people that you're competing against, and that's, of course, it's not competition. I don't use I'd like for everybody in the class to get an A. I'm not going to curve things and force, the bottom 10% to take a C and the middle 50% to get a B. In a graduate, I know that a C is a failing grade in a graduate program. I don't want to give anybody a C. Now, if you don't do the work, I'll give you a C. You don't deserve to get a B, I'll give you a C. But I'm happy to give everybody A's. I've had really good students the last few years. The last 2 or 3 years that I've taught this course, I've had really outstanding students. And so that's, you have to think about that as you go in to take this test, that I've been used to reading really good answers to these questions. So good luck on exam 1. I hope that this wasn't too tedious for you watching these podcasts on the internet, but it was better than coming to class when it was 20 degrees and we had snow and ice and everything on the ground. So anyway, I'll see you in class this Tuesday night, or I'll see you if you're watching this a little bit later. I'll see you the next time we're in class, and good luck with exam 1.